Hey guys, Rebel Engine 95, recording live from the local county prison cell. I've been meaning to make another, actual, video I made instead of just like a prediction video. Um, like I said, I've been incredibly busy recently. I feel like I'm saying that a lot more often. And, yeah, and also the thing is, a lot of the videos I have, like a lot of the matchups I have set aside, I'm realizing they don't. It's not that they don't work. It's that it's probably best to hold off on them or rethink how to go about them before just making a video on it. So there's actually not too many that that I'd be okay doing right now. This one is one of them, and I really think this one's good. So it's gonna be Reaper from Overwatch versus Revenant from Apex Legends. Um, just putting an Apex Legends character, I think, in is a good idea. I'm always good for I always like it when they include a character from a franchise that they've never done before. I'm always a fan of that. And secondly, I think it's really kind of like I've done so many Reaper fights. Well, I haven't personally, but I've seen so many Reaper fights, and the one I picked was the wrong one because it's like you either do Reaper versus Noob Saibot or you do Kylo Ren versus Noob Saibot. I did Reaper versus Kylo Ren, and that was incorrect. That was just incorrect. That was the wrong one to do. I'm keeping it up because I don't shy away from my own ignorance. But this, I think, rather than Reaper versus Noob Saibot, I think this is actually the best Reaper fight. Because, well, like, Noob Saibot's an actual, like, undead person. So I feel like that's better being put against another undead person. Whereas these two are fake undead people. Um, Kylo Ren's neither real nor fake undead. He's just wearing black, but that's not the point. But also they're from very similar games, which I'm not saying you have to put, like, oh, you have to put an Overwatch character versus another FPS character. No, we had Widowmaker versus Black Widow, and I thought that fight was awesome. Like I wouldn't have chosen after hearing that fight, I wouldn't have chosen anyone else to be in that. So, but I just think like this was kind of set up to be done. If there was a crossover of some sort, I would expect this to be like feature. If there was a crossover comic or something, I would expect these two to meet, right? But anyway, let's get into it. So, Reaper. I'm not gonna get into names and backstories too much, like except for slightly because it's like Marvel and DC comics. Like, there's a lot of names. Like, I know you better by the alias than I do. I'm not gonna learn your actual name. His name was like Mark or something. I don't fucking know. Whatever. Probably not even Mark. Um, so Reaper was a member of Overwatch for a long period of time. Actually, I think he was around the same time as Soldier, and um, fought in the Great Robot War, and later just due to certain things like jealousy and just general distrust, he betrayed the organization, set them up from within, went over to Blackwatch, the shadow organization of Overwatch, the shadow equivalent of Overwatch, and I think it's called Blackwatch. I'm not sure. And he underwent experimentation that caused his cells to degrade and regenerate at a faster rate. So this guy essentially dies and comes back in a way constantly. So like he dies faster because uh his cells degrade and faster, but they also regenerate from that degradation. So he's able to like die and come back super quickly. I don't see the point of that, but whatever. At first I thought this gave him a healing factor, but I think it just kind of gives him like longevity, like he's able to live a lot longer, and kind of stay at his prime. The other things he does, and this is where donning the mask becomes sort of a thing, is he gained the ability, though I think these might be based off like equipment. I'm not entirely sure if it's an actual ability of his or if it's equipment, and that's probably going to come into play. So I should know that. But he's able to do his wraith form, where he becomes intangible and can pass through enemies. Can attacks go right through him? They don't damage him. He just can't attack while he does it, which leads me to believe that it's equipment. So I'm going to go with that, and I'm going to say it with confidence so that if you, for some reason, skipped the last minute, you're going to think that I just know what I'm talking about. So yeah, it's definitely 100% based off technology. And I know that for a fact, and I'm not just speculating. And he also has his shadow step, which is essentially like a teleportation, where he marks a location on the map and then just instantly, not instantly, but like, just goes to that location. Um, However, these are just handy tools that make his regular offensive capabilities that much more potent, being with his shotguns, the Hellfire shotguns, I think they're called, which are shotguns that fire, like magnum rounds that do like heavy damage on, it's a shotgun. Close proximity does higher damage, longer range proximity does less damage, that sort of thing. Now going on to Revenant. He was an assassin. He was like a top level assassin who had unknowingly been transferred into a cyborg body and had his memory rewritten so that he didn't realize he was in a cyborg body. So he essentially kept being an assassin for, I think it was like hundreds of years or something. Then eventually that reprogramming failed and he remembered everything that he had been basically brainwashed into doing, even though he would have done it anyway because he was an assassin, but that he'd been this, organization's puppet for hundreds of years and took revenge on them and then took more jobs as a top level assassin to, just be even worse. I would be even more better at it, I guess. Um, he's got enough strength to like impale a human body with his bare hands, to break someone's neck with a single, like just with one hand and twisting it. He can climb walls with just by digging his claws into them. He can actually crouch. He can, because his limbs are robotic. He can like walk like Grievous. He can walk like a spider. Uh, at a actually rather fast speed. And then of course he's got his regular equipment on top of like in Apex. There's a huge customization of weapons you can grab, so like maybe they could give him like the standard Apex weapons and not just like the big ones, because then if they did another Apex character they'd have to give them everything as well. But maybe give him, just give him like a fucking, I think if you give him a machine gun or something it's not that big of a deal. But um especially against somebody like Reaper. But he's got an explosive device. It's not specifically called a grenade. It doesn't really look like a grenade. I think it's more like a what are those things called? It's like a grenade, but it's like one of those like sticky bombs almost, right? It's an explosive device that also has the side ability to shut off like activated abilities. Um, so that's, I'll get into that later. But point is, it leaves like this cloud that damages people when it lingers. and also, disabled. That's what disables their abilities, which leads me to believe it's some sort of like, it's probably like an EMP, or it's like some kind of, like metallic, like some sort of like nanobite dust or something that disables technology. Um, then he also has his ultimate ability, the Death Totem. Now, the Death Totem is what makes this pretty much makes this a fight, or makes this interesting, because the Death Totem allows Revenant and all of his teammates, but this is a one-on-one fight, so it's not going to matter. So it'll just apply to him. Anytime they would be killed, they return to the Death Totem as like a shadow form of themselves almost. And in game the kill doesn't count, right? So they turn into here um instead of dying, right? So now that it only lasts for 1 minute, and their shadow selves retain all of their abilities except they can't do. I think it says they can't do ultimates, right? Which in Reaper's case would just be another death totem. So yeah. Um, and they retain some other abilities, like they're immune to there's certain interactions with them. Now the death totem only lasts for 1 minute, like I said, and it can also be destroyed. So these are kind of important factors. So this would be kind of like a one-time use thing, unless, or it would be like the Thanos Darkseid fight where he just keeps killing him and he just keeps showing up. Yeah, like it would before he realizes like this isn't working. Um, so how would this fight go? Based off of the not assumption, because I absolutely know it's true, of Reaper's Shadow Step and Wraith form being technology and not a native ability of his, right? I think the silence would be able to turn it off temporarily, because it doesn't just turn off abilities permanently, it turns them off for like 10 seconds or something. Um, so I think that would be something that Revenant would have over Reaper. Um, and the Death Totem would obviously be keep coming back. The problem is, like I said, the Death Totem's not permanent. Let me put my hand in screen so you know I'm counting. Not permanent, and it can be destroyed. And Reaper, with his like Wraith form and with the Shadow Step, I think he's completely equipped to deal with this. Like I said, it gets shut off, but like Shadow Step is the perfect ability to deal with something like that with like a respawn mark, because you just mark the location you're going into. You just mark it as where the respawn's happening, and then you're just at the machine, and then you can just destroy it. Um, I know that's, yeah, literally camp killing. Um, and when you have like Reaper just being straight up immune to like physical attack, just being able to like ghost through him, that's, I don't think Revenant has a lot to deal with that aside from just disabling it temporarily. Um, the other thing to consider is while Revenant has hundreds of years of experience, Reaper literally fought a war against robots. So, like, he's specifically experienced to deal with a robot. Um, this is interesting. I definitely feel like, being able to turn off the abilities and respawn one more time. This is not super far. Like this is relatively close. It's just I think Reaper's probably got this. But anyway, yeah, Purple Engine 95.